The great chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as Ambassador Chen walked to the speaking platform. His simple black uniform stood out among the flowing robes and crystal armor of the other delegates. The human carried a single data pad, nothing more. "Honored members of the Council," Chen began, his voice calm and steady. "The Terran Republic formally requests withdrawal from the Galactic Council, effective immediately." A ripple of surprise ran through the chamber, but it was not the shock of loss. It was the relief of finally hearing what many had hoped for. Council Speaker Vorthak, a tall being with purple skin and 4 arms, leaned forward with barely hidden satisfaction. "Ambassador Chen," Vorthak said, "this is quite sudden. Perhaps the human delegation would benefit from more time to consider?" Chen shook his head. "We have considered for 3 years. Earth and all human colonies will pursue independent development. We thank the Council for the opportunity to participate, but our paths have grown too different." In the viewing galleries, the other species whispered among themselves. The Zephyrians, who looked like giant butterflies made of metal, clicked their approval. They had never liked how humans asked questions about everything. Why did trade routes favor certain worlds? Why were some species given voting rights while others were not? Why did the Council refuse to explore certain sectors of space? The crystalline hegemony delegates, beings of living crystal who controlled most of the galaxy's banking, hummed in harmony. They calculated quickly in their shared mind. Without humans, there would be no more complaints about unfair interest rates or exploitative contracts. The resources currently spent on human integration programs could be redirected to more profitable ventures. "Very well," Vorthak announced. "The Council accepts the Terran Republic's withdrawal. We wish you success in your future endeavors." Chen bowed slightly. "Thank you. Human vessels will depart Council space within 30 standard days. We will honor all existing trade contracts until their completion." As Chen left the chamber, the Council members felt lighter. Finally, they could return to the comfortable order they had maintained for thousands of years. The humans had been like children, always asking why and what if. They questioned traditions that had worked perfectly well since before Earth had even discovered fire. The next few weeks passed smoothly. Human ships began leaving Council space stations. Their colonies in Council territory were either abandoned or sold to other species. The process was remarkably quiet and organized. No protests, no angry speeches, no dramatic gestures. The humans simply packed up and left. Captain Sarah Reeves stood on the bridge of the cargo ship New Horizon as it departed from Kepler Station. Behind them, the massive space station grew smaller against the stars. Her crew worked quietly at their stations, preparing for the long journey to the outer rim. "Any regrets, Captain?" asked her first officer, Lieutenant Torres. "About leaving?" "No," Sarah replied. "We tried to fit in for 20 years, but they never really wanted us as equals. They wanted us as junior partners who would follow their rules, without question. The Council had made that clear in 100 small ways. Human proposals for new trade routes were always under review. Human requests to establish colonies in certain sectors were denied without explanation. When humans offered to share their research on faster-than-light communication, they were told the technology was not compatible with existing systems. Most frustrating was the attitude toward exploration. Humans wanted to map new star systems, make contact with unknown species, and push the boundaries of known space. The Council preferred to maintain control over existing territories. They saw exploration as risky and expensive, not worth the potential rewards. "Where are we headed?" Torres asked. "Tau Ceti sector. There's a whole cluster of systems out there that the Council marked as unsuitable for development. Seems like a perfect place for us to start fresh." The New Horizon was one of hundreds of human ships making similar journeys. Some carried families to new colony worlds. Others transported machinery and supplies. A few were research vessels, eager to explore regions the Council had ignored. On Earth, President Martinez addressed the planet in a simple speech. Today begins a new chapter for humanity. We go not in anger, but in hope. The galaxy is vast, and there is room for many different ways of life. We will build something new among the stars. The Council barely noticed when the last human ship left their territory. They were already focused on other matters. The hegemony was proposing new banking regulations. The Zephyrians wanted to discuss territorial disputes with their neighbors. The daily business of governing a galaxy continued without interruption. Speaker Vorthak filed his report on the human withdrawal. He wrote, "The Terran Republic has voluntarily departed Council space. This development is expected to reduce administrative costs and eliminate a source of procedural disruptions. No negative impacts are anticipated." The report was archived and forgotten. In the Outer Rim territories, human ships arrived at worlds the Council had written off. Rocky planets with thin atmospheres, ice worlds with subsurface oceans, desert worlds with mineral deposits but no water. The Council had declared these places uninhabitable, not worth the cost of development. The humans looked at the same worlds and saw opportunity. Thin atmospheres could be thickened with the right technology. Ice could be melted for water and processed for oxygen. Desert worlds could be terraformed slowly, turning dead rock into living soil. Commander Jessica Park established the first new human colony on a world they named Haven. The planet had been rejected by Council surveys because of its harsh storms and thin air. But the storms carried rare minerals, and the thin air could be enriched with plants from Earth. "It's not paradise," she told her colonists as they broke ground for the first settlement. "But it's ours. We can build here according to our own ideas, our own values." The colonists worked together without the complex hierarchy systems favored. By Council species, engineers worked alongside farmers. Scientists shared their research freely instead of selling it to the highest bidder. Children learned about cooperation and exploration instead of rigid social order. Meanwhile, in Council space, life continued as it always had. Trade flowed along ancient routes. The powerful species maintained their control over resources and territory. The weak remained weak, and the strong remained strong. But something was missing, though few could identify what. The Council chambers felt quieter somehow. Debates were more predictable. Proposals followed the same patterns they had for centuries. The humans had been gone for only a month, but their absence left an unexpected void. They had been the ones asking uncomfortable questions, proposing new ideas, challenging old assumptions. Without them, the Council settled into comfortable routine. None of the Council members suspected that this routine would soon become a trap. They had no idea that the humans were not simply surviving in the Outer Rim, but thriving in ways that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. For now, they were content. The troublesome humans were gone, and order was restored. The galaxy was peaceful and profitable, just as it should be. They had no way of knowing that they had just made the greatest strategic mistake in the Council's 3,000-year history. By letting the humans leave quietly, they had given them something far more valuable than a seat at the Council table. They had given them freedom. 5 years had passed since the humans left Council space. The galaxy seemed quieter, more orderly. Trade flowed smoothly along established routes. Disputes were settled according to ancient protocols. The Council members congratulated themselves on maintaining stability and prosperity. But small details began to accumulate like dust in forgotten corners. Trade Captain HFY of the crystalline hegemony first noticed it during a routine cargo run to the Centauri sector. His crystal ship, the Prophet's Edge, was designed to haul valuable minerals from mining worlds to industrial centers. The route had been profitable for decades. "Navigation, set course for Kepler Mining Station," HFY commanded. "Captain." His navigator replied, "Kepler Station is operating at minimal capacity. Most of the miners moved to the Outer Rim territories. Zexhi's crystal body flickered with surprise. Moved where? The Outer Rim has nothing but worthless rocks and radiation. Unknown, Captain. The station manager says they received better offers elsewhere. This made no sense. The Outer Rim was where the Council sent ships to disappear. No legitimate business operated beyond the established trade lanes. Yet somehow, workers were abandoning stable jobs in Council space for opportunities that should not exist. The pattern repeated across multiple sectors. Mining stations reported worker shortages. Agricultural worlds complained about farmers leaving for frontier opportunities. Even some merchant families were selling their businesses and heading toward the galactic edge. On the Council world of Zerion Prime, Administrator Keltar reviewed monthly reports with growing confusion. The Zerions were a practical species, evolved from pack hunters who valued efficiency above all else. They had served as the Council's logistics coordinators for over 1,000 years. The shipping manifests do not match, Keltar told his assistant. Cargo volumes on Rim-Ward routes have increased by 400%, but we show no authorized colonies in those sectors. Perhaps smuggling operations? The assistant suggested. No. The ships are properly registered and following all protocols. They are just going to places that officially do not exist. Keltar pulled up star charts on his holographic display. The Outer Rim territories showed vast empty spaces marked unexplored or unsuitable for development. But the shipping data suggested thriving communities in dozens of these supposedly empty systems. The first real shock came when a hegemony trade delegation tried to establish contact with one of these mysterious Rim communities. Captain Vorthek commanded a luxury diplomatic vessel designed to impress potential business partners. His orders were simple: find these new markets and establish profitable relationships. The ship Golden Opportunity arrived in the Tau Ceti system expecting to find desperate colonists eager for trade agreements. Instead, they discovered something that defied all expectations. 3 planets in the system showed signs of major terraforming projects. Orbital stations processed raw materials with efficiency that matched or exceeded anything in Council space. Defensive satellites politely but firmly informed the hegemony ship that they were entering coalition territory and must request permission to proceed. Coalition? Vorthek wondered aloud. What coalition? The response came from a human voice, calm and professional. This is Haven Control. We've forwarded your arrival to the Terran Coalition Trade Authority. Please state your business and intentions. Vorthek's crystal form pulsed with confusion. The humans had left Council space with nothing but basic ships and outdated equipment. How could they have built such sophisticated infrastructure in only 5 years? We represent the Crystalline Hegemony Banking Consortium, he transmitted. We seek to establish mutually beneficial trade relationships with your coalition. Thank you for your interest. Please transmit your formal proposal to the Trade Authority. Processing time is typically 4 to 6 standard weeks. 4 to 6 weeks? In Council space, the hegemony received immediate responses to their requests. Their economic power commanded instant attention, yet these humans were treating them like any other minor trading partner. When the response finally came, it was even more shocking than the delay. The coalition politely declined the hegemony's standard trade agreement, citing incompatible business practices and concerns about economic exploitation of member species. Member species? The humans had found other species to join their coalition? Investigation revealed an impossible truth. Humanity had not simply survived in the Outer Rim, they had become the center of a growing alliance. Species that the Council had never heard of were joining something called the Terran Coalition. Old enemies had become partners. Resource-rich worlds that the Council had deemed too dangerous to approach were now thriving coalition members. The Vegan lizard people had signed a mutual defense pact with humanity. The Andromedans, who had been isolated for centuries after a dispute with the Council, were now coalition partners. Even more disturbing, some species that were officially under Council protection had quietly established cultural exchange programs with the Coalition. Dr. Yel Asha, the Council's chief xenobiologist, studied the reports with growing alarm. She was a member of the Draconis species, proud descendants of an ancient empire that had helped found the Council. "This should not be possible," she told the emergency session. "Species take centuries to form stable alliances. Trust must be built slowly, through careful negotiation and mutual advantage. Yet the humans have created this coalition in mere years." Speaker, Vorthak shifted uncomfortably on his platform. "Perhaps these species are being coerced. The humans always were unusually aggressive." "No evidence of coercion," Dr. Yelasha replied. "In fact, our intelligence suggests the opposite. Coalition members report higher satisfaction levels than many Council protectorates. Their economies are growing faster than our projections indicated was possible." "How is that possible?" demanded Councillor Zephran of the butterfly-like Zephyrians. "We calculated the resource requirements for successful colonization. The outer rim lacks the infrastructure to support large populations. The humans appear to have developed new approaches to resource management and territorial development. They share technology freely among coalition members instead of licensing it for profit. They establish joint research projects instead of protecting intellectual property. They terraform worlds cooperatively instead of claiming exclusive development rights." The Council chamber fell silent. These practices violated every principle of galactic economics. Technology was power, and power was not shared. Resources were competed for, not distributed. Territory was claimed and defended, not developed collectively. Yet somehow, this impossible system was working better than the carefully balanced Council economy. The silence was broken by an urgent message from the border sectors. 3 more. Council protectorate species had submitted formal requests to join the Terran Coalition. The requests included detailed comparisons between Council and Coalition policies, and the conclusions were not flattering to the Council. "They offer us partnership instead of protection," read one report. "They share research instead of selling it to us. They treat our votes as equal to theirs instead of proportional to our economic contribution." Speaker Vorthak felt a chill that had nothing to do with the chamber's temperature controls. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Council faced a rival that offered species something better than Council membership. The humans had not been conquered or destroyed. They had not failed and come crawling back, begging for readmission. Instead, they had built something that made the Council look inadequate by comparison. "Perhaps," suggested Dr. Yel Asha quietly, "we should have listened to their questions instead of being relieved when they stopped asking them. But it was too late for such reflections. The damage was done, and it was spreading. Every day brought new reports of coalition expansion, new species choosing human partnership over Council membership, new trade routes that bypassed Council, space entirely. The humans had left quietly without anger or threats. Now their absence was becoming the Council's greatest threat. And the worst part was that it had been entirely preventable. If they had simply treated the humans as equals instead of annoying junior partners, none of this would have happened. But they had chosen the easy path of dismissal instead of the hard work of adaptation. Now they would pay the price for that choice. The emergency session began at dawn on Zerion Prime. Council members appeared through holographic projectors from across the galaxy, their faces grim with a crisis none had imagined possible. The Andorian plague had been spreading for 3 months, and their best medical minds were powerless to stop it. Senior healer Vorthak stood before the assembled council, his 4 arms trembling with exhaustion. He had not slept in 72 hours. "The pathogen defies all our treatment protocols. It adapts to every medicine we deploy. 17 worlds are now under quarantine, and the infection rate continues to accelerate." The disease had appeared. suddenly in the Andorian sector, attacking the nervous systems of multiple species. What made it terrifying was its ability to change, to evolve defenses against any treatment almost as quickly as doctors could develop them. Traditional medicines failed. Advanced treatments worked for days or weeks before becoming useless. How? Many casualties? Asked Counselor Mordak of the crystalline hegemony. Conservative estimates suggest 2 billion deaths within the next 6 months if we cannot find a solution, Vorthak replied. The plague shows no signs of natural decline. The council chamber erupted in nervous chatter. 2 billion deaths would destabilize entire sectors of the galaxy. The economic impact alone would take decades to recover from, not to mention the political chaos as desperate worlds blamed the council for failing to protect them. What about the research archives? Suggested Dr. Yel Asha. Surely there are historical precedents for adaptive pathogens. Vorthak activated a holographic display showing thousands of medical documents. We have reviewed every case study in our databases. This pathogen is unlike anything we have encountered. It seems to learn from our attempts to fight it. As the healer spoke, a memory surfaced in his mind. Years ago, during a routine council session, the human delegation had presented a research paper on something they called adaptive medical protocols. The idea had been radical. Instead of developing fixed treatments for diseases, they proposed flexible systems that could evolve along with changing pathogens. At the time, the council's medical establishment had dismissed the research as primitive. Human medicine was centuries behind the sophistication of species like the Vortaxi healers or the crystalline hegemony's bioengineering masters. Why would anyone need adaptive protocols when they had perfect knowledge of disease and treatment? Wait, Vorthak said slowly. There was a human research paper, 7 years ago. They proposed medical systems that could adapt to changing pathogens. Human medicine? Scoffed Dr. Melvana, a Vortaxi healer whose species had mastered biological sciences when humans were still living in caves. Their technology is barely adequate for their own species, let alone galactic medicine. Nevertheless, Vorthak continued, their research specifically addressed the problem of diseases that adapt to treatment. Perhaps their primitive approach might offer insights our advanced methods have overlooked. The suggestion created an uncomfortable silence. The council had spent 5 years convincing themselves that letting the humans leave was a wise decision. Admitting they needed human help would undermine everything they had told themselves about human inferiority. Contact them, ordered Speaker Vorthak. This crisis supersedes political considerations. The message was carefully crafted by the council's diplomatic corps. It began with formal greetings and acknowledgement of the Terran Coalition's sovereignty. It outlined the medical crisis in clinical terms. It concluded with a polite request for any assistance the Coalition might be able to provide. The response came within hours, but it was not what the Council expected. To the Galactic Council Medical Authority, the message began. We acknowledge your request for assistance with the Andorian plague crisis. The Terran Coalition maintains extensive research on adaptive pathogen response protocols. However, current coalition policy restricts the sharing of medical research with non-coalition entities due to security concerns and past experiences with intellectual property disputes. Past experiences with intellectual property disputes. The phrase hit the council like a physical blow. They remembered now, every time humans had shared research with the council, it had been immediately classified, restricted, and often sold back to other species as council developed technology. The message continues, announced the communication officer. Coalition medical teams are currently deployed to assist several member species with similar adaptive pathogen outbreaks. Our protocols have proven effective in limiting casualties and developing sustainable treatment regimens. They already had the solution. While council worlds died by the millions, the coalition was successfully treating the same type of disease. The humans had not only survived their exile, they had advanced beyond council capabilities in critical areas. Furthermore, the message continued, "The Coalition notes that similar research was offered to the Council 7 years ago through formal channels. The research was declined without review. Current Coalition policy requires formal partnership agreements before sensitive medical technology can be shared." Dr. Melvana's crystalline features flickered with something resembling shame. She remembered the human presentation now. They had offered to share their research freely, asking only for access to Council medical databases to verify their theories. The offer had been rejected out of hand. "What would such a partnership agreement require?" asked Speaker Vorthak. The response was swift and devastating in its simplicity. Standard Coalition partnership requires recognition of member species equality, commitment to shared research protocols, and agreement to non-exploitative resource management practices. Interested parties may submit formal applications through standard diplomatic channels. Processing time is typically 18 to 24 months. 18 to 24 months. Billions would die while the Coalition processed paperwork. Yet the humans were not being cruel or vindictive. They were simply applying the same bureaucratic procedures the Council had used on them for decades. "Can we not expedite the process?" pleaded Healer Vorthak. "This is an emergency that threatens multiple species." The Coalition understands the urgency of the situation. However, partnership agreements require careful evaluation to ensure compatibility between governmental systems and cultural values. The Coalition has learned from experience that hasty agreements often lead to misunderstandings and failed relationships. The message was polite, professional, and utterly uncompromising. The humans were treating the Council exactly as the Council had treated them, as petitioners whose requests required careful consideration and proper procedures. Dr. Yel Asha studied the communication records with growing understanding. "They are not refusing to help us," she said slowly. "They are requiring us to meet the same standards they require from all their partners." "What standards?" demanded Councillor Mordak. "Equality, shared research, fair resource distribution. All the things they proposed when they were Council members and all the things we rejected." The irony was crushing. The Council had spent years telling the humans that their ideas were naive and impractical. Now those same ideas had become the foundation of a successful galactic alliance that was outperforming the Council in multiple areas. Meanwhile, the plague continued to spread. Each day brought reports of new casualties, new worlds under quarantine, new systems requesting emergency assistance the Council could not provide. The humans had the solution, but they would not share it without fundamental changes to how the Council operated. "We could agree to their terms temporarily," suggested Dr. Melvana. "Join their coalition long enough to obtain the medical protocols, then withdraw once the crisis passes." "They would see through such deception immediately," replied Dr. Yel Asha. "The humans may have been naive about Council politics, but they were never stupid. Any partnership agreement would include provisions to prevent exactly that kind of manipulation." The Council found itself trapped by its own success. For 3,000 years, they had maintained power through careful control of resources and information. They had built a system where knowledge was currency and cooperation was limited to those who could pay the price. The humans had built something different, a system where knowledge was shared freely and cooperation was the foundation of prosperity. Now, when the Council desperately needed that cooperation, they discovered that their own principles prevented them from accessing it. "What do we do?" asked Speaker Vorthak. The question hung in the air like a funeral shroud. For the first time in millennia, the Galactic Council had no answer. They could watch billions die while maintaining their principles, or they could abandon those principles to save lives. Either choice would forever change what the Council meant, and in the outer, Rim territories, human medical teams continued their work, saving lives with protocols the Council had once dismissed as primitive. The humans had not forgotten the rejection of their research, but they had moved beyond it, building something better than anything the Council had achieved. The empty chairs where human delegates once sat had become symbols of the Council's greatest failure. Not the failure to keep the humans, but the failure to learn from them. Now it was too late for lessons. The only question was whether it was too late for survival. Commander Sarthek of the Council Intelligence Division stared at the reconnaissance reports spread across his desk. After 3 months of investigation, the data painted a picture so impossible that he had ordered the information verified 5 times. Each verification only confirmed what should not exist. "Show me the Kepler system again," he commanded his aide. The holographic display filled with light as a detailed star map appeared. 8 years ago, Kepler had been empty space, a few rocky planets and an asteroid field that Council surveys had marked as resource-poor and unsuitable for development. Now it hosted a thriving coalition capital with a population approaching 50 million beings. How did they terraform 3 planets in 8 years? Sarthek wondered aloud. Our fastest terraforming projects take centuries. They appear to use cooperative techniques we have not seen before, his aide replied. Instead of each species contributing specific resources, all coalition members share everything: technology, labor, materials, and knowledge. Sarthek examined the economic data. Traditional galactic development required massive initial investments, complex licensing agreements, and careful negotiation of territorial rights. Species competed for the best sites, hoarded their most advanced technology, and protected their trade secrets. The coalition did none of this. When they decided to develop a world, every member species contributed what they could. The Andromedans provided atmospheric processors. The vegan lizard people shared soil enhancement techniques. Humans contributed engineering expertise and organizational systems. The result was development speeds that defied all Council economic models. What about their military capabilities? Sarthek asked. The military assessment was equally disturbing. Council doctrine relied on massive fleets of standardized warships, each species maintaining their own forces according to their technological capabilities. The result was predictable. Powerful species like the crystalline hegemony could field impressive fleets, while weaker species depended on Council protection. Coalition military doctrine was completely different. Instead of large fleets, they used small groups of highly advanced ships that worked together with perfect coordination. A typical coalition patrol consisted of ships from multiple species, each contributing unique capabilities to create a force that was more effective than the sum of its parts. Their ships are smaller than our cruisers, reported intelligence analyst Zephyrin. But their coordination is flawless. They fight as if their crews share a single mind. Impossible, Sarthek replied. Different species cannot achieve that level of coordination. The communication delays alone make it impractical. Yet they do it consistently. Our observers report coalition fleets performing maneuvers that require split-second timing across multiple ships. They have somehow solved problems that our military theorists consider unsolvable. The secret, Sarthek learned, was trust. Council species maintained strict hierarchies even within joint operations. Orders flowed down from the commanding species to subordinate allies. Information was shared only on a need-to-know basis. Each species protected their tactical advantages even from their partners. Coalition forces operated with complete transparency. Every ship had access to all tactical data. Decisions were made collectively, with each crew contributing to the overall strategy. The result was a level of cooperation that Council forces could not match. But the most disturbing development was the Coalition's expansion policy. The Council maintained control through a careful balance of protection and dependence. Member Oz. Species received security and trade benefits in exchange for following Council regulations and accepting Council authority. The Coalition offered something radically different: partnership without subordination. When a species joined the Coalition, they kept their independence while gaining access to shared resources and collective defense. There were no junior partners, no hierarchies based on technological advancement or economic contribution. 16 species have left Council protection in the past year, reported analyst Morvex. All have joined the coalition. 3 more have submitted formal requests to withdraw from Council membership. Sarthek studied the defection reports with growing alarm. The species leaving were not failures or rejects. They were successful. Council members who had decided they could do better with the coalition. Their reasons were disturbingly consistent. The Altarian hive mind had grown tired of having their collective decisions overruled by Council bureaucracy. The coalition respects our unity, their farewell message stated. The Council demands we fragment ourselves to fit their individual-based decision-making systems. The Rigelian Trade Federation was frustrated with Council economic restrictions. Coalition membership has increased our trade volume by 400%, they reported. We are no longer limited to Council-approved trade routes and Council-licensed technologies. Most concerning was the departure of the Centauri Defense League. As a military alliance of 12 warrior species, they had been one of the Council's most reliable security partners. Their withdrawal left huge gaps in Council defensive capabilities. Why did the Centaurians leave? Sarthek asked. They were offered something better, Morvex replied. The coalition does not just provide security. They share military technology freely among all members. The Centaurians went from being hired protectors to equal partners in galactic defense. Sarthek reviewed the intelligence on coalition technology sharing. It violated every principle of galactic economics. Advanced species were supposed to maintain their advantages by controlling access to their best technology. The coalition turned this upside down by giving away their most valuable assets. Yet somehow, this approach made them stronger instead of weaker. When every coalition member had access to the best available technology, the overall capabilities of the alliance improved dramatically. Innovation accelerated because researchers from multiple species worked together instead of competing against each other. They are rewriting the rules of galactic civilization, Sarthek concluded. Everything we thought we knew about politics, economics, and military strategy is being proven wrong. The evidence was overwhelming. Coalition worlds were more prosperous than Council worlds. Coalition species reported higher satisfaction levels. Coalition technology was advancing faster than Council research. Coalition military forces were more effective despite being smaller. Most importantly, the coalition was growing while the Council was shrinking. Every month brought new defections, new species choosing human partnership over Council membership. The humans had not conquered anyone or threatened anyone. They had simply offered a better alternative. What makes the humans so different? Sarthek wondered. The answer, according to the psychological profiles, was surprisingly simple. Humans approached galactic politics as if other species were equals worthy of respect and cooperation. This was not a calculated strategy or a clever manipulation. It was apparently their genuine belief system. Other species had noticed. When the Andromedans joined the coalition, their spokesman explained their decision. For the first time in our history, we are treated as partners rather than subjects. The humans listen to our ideas instead of telling us what to think. The vegan lizard people were even more direct. The Council offered us protection in exchange for obedience. The coalition offers us friendship in exchange for friendship. The choice was obvious. Sarthek compiled his final report with heavy hearts. The intelligence was clear, but its implications were devastating. The Council faced a rival that was not only more successful, but also more appealing to potential members. The coalition's advantages were not based on superior technology or military power. They were based on superior principles. Recommendation? Asked his superior, Director Kolvash. The Council must adapt or become irrelevant, Sarthek replied. The coalition has proven that cooperation works better than control, that shared prosperity creates more wealth than hoarded advantages, and that treating species as equals produces better results than maintaining hierarchies. You are suggesting we abandon 3,000 years of successful governance? I am suggesting that our governance is no longer successful. The coalition is demonstrating better approaches to every challenge we face. If we do not learn from them, we will eventually be replaced by them. Director Kolvash stared at the reports, understanding finally settling in. The humans had not been naive idealists, pushing impractical theories. They had been pioneers of a more effective form of galactic civilization. The Council had dismissed them as ignorant primitives. Now those same primitives were building an empire that made the Council look obsolete. "How long do we have?" Kolvash asked. "At current rates of defection and expansion, the Coalition will match Council membership within 5 years. Within 10 years, they may become the dominant galactic power." The greatest irony was that this could have been prevented. If the Council had embraced human ideas instead of rejecting them, the Coalition would never have existed. The humans would have reformed the Council from within instead of building a replacement from without. But it was too late for such regrets. The Coalition was real, it was growing, and it was better than anything the Council had achieved. The emergency council session was called after 3 more member species announced their intention to join the Terran Coalition. Speaker Vorthak looked out over the great chamber and saw something that filled him with dread. Empty seats. Where, once representatives from 47 species had gathered, now only 31 remained. "We cannot allow this exodus to continue," declared Councillor Zephron of the Zephyrians. "The Coalition's expansion threatens the stability of the entire galactic order." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The remaining Council species were growing desperate as they watched their alliance crumble. Trade routes were disrupted. Defense agreements were canceled. Entire sectors were choosing coalition partnership over Council membership. "I propose we issue an ultimatum," Zephron continued. "The Coalition must cease their recruitment of Council species or face economic sanctions." "And if they refuse?" asked Dr. Yalasha. "Then we consider military action. The Council has maintained galactic peace for 3,000 years. We cannot allow a group of primitives to destroy everything we have built." Director Kolvash of Intelligence Division stood, slowly. His expression was grim as he activated a holographic display showing Coalition military capabilities. "Military action would be inadvisable. Coalition forces are small but highly advanced. More importantly, they have defensive agreements with 36 species, including several former Council members." "Are you saying they could defeat us?" demanded Councillor Mordak. "I am saying that any conflict would be devastating for both sides, and based on current diplomatic trends, other species would likely support the Coalition rather than the Council." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Council had always maintained power through a combination of economic benefits and military protection. Now they faced a rival that offered better economic opportunities and potentially superior military capabilities. "Perhaps we should negotiate," suggested Dr. Yalasha. The humans were always willing to discuss reasonable compromises. "Negotiate?" Zephron's butterfly-like form shimmered with indignation. "We are the Galactic Council. We do not negotiate with rebels and separatists." "They are not rebels," Dr. Yalasha replied quietly. "They left peacefully and legally. Everything they have built was constructed in territories we had abandoned. They have broken no laws and violated no agreements. They are stealing our member species. They are offering those species something we apparently cannot provide." The debate was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Council's monitoring stations. Every screen in the chamber simultaneously activated, showing the calm face of President Martinez of the Terran Coalition. "Citizens of the galaxy," Martinez began, "for 10 years, the Terran Coalition has existed alongside the Galactic Council in peaceful coexistence. We have respected Council territory, honored all existing agreements, and worked to build a better future for our member species." The chamber erupted in angry voices, But Martinez continued speaking. However, recent statements from certain council members suggest a misunderstanding of our intentions and our rights. The coalition wishes to address these misunderstandings directly. Speaker Vorthak commanded silence as the broadcast continued. Every being in council space was watching. The humans had somehow transmitted to every communication network simultaneously, a technical feat that should have been impossible. The galaxy is vast enough for different approaches to civilization, Martinez continued. The council favors hierarchy, control, and restricted access to resources and technology. The coalition believes in equality, cooperation, and shared prosperity. Both systems have their merits, and both have the right to exist. Behind Martinez, the image shifted to show coalition worlds. Thriving cities built by multiple species working together. Research facilities where beings from dozens of different cultures shared knowledge freely. Defense fleets where ships from various species fought as unified forces. We chose our path when the Council let us leave quietly 10 years ago. We have built something new based on principles of mutual respect and shared benefit. We invite any species that finds these principles, appealing to join us freely. The image changed again, showing testimonials from species that had left the Council for the Coalition. The Altarian hive mind spoke of having their collective consciousness respected rather than fragmented. The Rigelian Trade Federation displayed economic growth statistics that dwarfed anything they had achieved under Council membership. Most damaging was the testimony from the Centauri Defense League. Under the Council, we were hired protectors, their spokesman declared. In the Coalition, we are partners. Our strategic insights are valued equally with our military might. We defend not just Coalition territory, but Coalition principles. Furthermore, Martinez continued, we wish to address recent threats of economic sanctions and military action. The Coalition does not seek conflict with the Council, but we will defend our members and our principles. Any species considering joining the Coalition should know that they will have the full support of our alliance. The broadcast showed Coalition defensive capabilities, small but incredibly advanced fleets, planetary shields that could repel massive attacks, and coordination between species that had never been achieved before. The message was clear. The Coalition was not defenseless. We make this broadcast not to threaten or intimidate, but to ensure clear communication. The Council and the Coalition can coexist peacefully, each following their own vision of galactic civilization. But we will not accept attempts to prevent species from choosing their own future. As the broadcast ended, chaos erupted in the Council chamber. Representatives shouted accusations and demands. Some called for immediate military action. Others argued for diplomatic solutions. A few suggested that perhaps the Council should consider adopting some coalition practices. They broadcast to our entire territory without permission, raged Councillor Zephyron. This is an act of war. It is an act of superior technology, replied Director Kolvash. They have capabilities we do not understand. Through the arguing voices, a new communication arrived. 3 more Council species announced their intention to join the Coalition. But these were not minor members. They included the Draconic Empire, one of the Council's founding species. Dr. Yelasha read the draconic message aloud. For 3,000 years, we helped build and maintain the Galactic Council. We believed in its mission of bringing order to the galaxy. But order built on inequality and maintained through control is not true order. It is oppression. The Coalition offers something we thought impossible. Order built on cooperation and maintained. Through mutual benefit, we choose the future over the past. The words hit the chamber like a physical blow. If the Draconics were leaving, other founding species might follow. The Council faced not just political opposition, but an existential crisis. What do we do now? Asked Speaker Vorthak. The question hung in the air as representatives looked at each other with growing desperation. They could fight a war they might not win. They could maintain their principles and watch their alliance crumble. Or they could admit that the humans they had dismissed as naive idealists had been right all along. "We adapt or we die," said Dr. Yelasha finally. "The coalition has proven that cooperation works better than control. We can either learn from them or be replaced by them." "You suggest we abandon everything we have built?" demanded Zephyron. "I suggest we save what we can while we still can. The coalition is not our enemy. They are our teachers. They are showing us what we could have been if we had listened to our better natures instead of our fears." As the session dissolved into heated arguments, the truth became undeniable. The humans had not conquered the galaxy through force or cunning. They had done something far more devastating. They had built something better and invited everyone to see the difference. 10. Years ago, the Council had let the humans leave quietly, thinking they were removing a problem. Instead, they had allowed humanity to demonstrate that there was a better way to organize galactic civilization. Now, as species after species chose coalition partnership over Council membership, the price of that mistake became clear. The Council had not just lost the humans, they had lost the future. The galaxy belonged to those who could build it better, and the humans had proven they could build it best of all. In the end, the Council's greatest regret was not that they had let the humans leave quietly. It was that they had not listened when the humans were still willing to stay and help them change. Now it was too late for cooperation. The only choice left was to follow or be forgotten. And across the galaxy, species looked toward the coalition. Worlds and saw not conquest or domination, but hope for something better than they had ever imagined possible.